and I will introduce you to our talent execs for Short Circuit, Aria Pisania and Miriam Newman. I am Rachel Wilson. I'm the project coordinator here at Short Circuit.
Hi, I'll just jump in. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm Aria, one of the talent executives at Short Circuit. And I'm really excited that we're launching Shop Shorts and we get to talk to everybody, although I can't see you, so that's a bit weird for us. We'll be talking amongst ourselves, so please just put things in the chat or the Q&A function as as we go through. I'll hand over to Miriam.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks, Aria. Thanks, Rachel. Thank you, Glasgow Film, for hosting us. We're really excited to get stuck into the guidelines. So we'll pass you back to Rachel.
Thanks both. So thank you so much to everyone that submitted their questions in advance. That's been really helpful for us to know what you're looking for and what you're looking to gain out of today's Q&A session. So we've organised each question into separate categories, and we're going to go in the following order. So we're first going to answer questions related to application, followed by budget, commissioning, development, distribution, eligibility, funding, project, and teams. So yeah, we'll go through them in just a moment. And just general, just some information about the session. So as we mentioned in our Eventbrite copy, we're just going to focus on answering the pre-submitted questions during this session. If we have time at the end, we will be able to take some questions from those of you that have joined us today live. If you just pop them in the chat or the Q&A box at the bottom. If you have anything you'd like to add to the session as we're answering questions, please do pop it in the chat and we'll try to answer them as we go. Great, okay. So Aria, Miriam, you wanted to just go through the application guidelines a little bit before we answered the questions.
I guess it was more of a case of doing a bit of an intro rather than going through the guidelines as such, because I assume a lot of people have already read them and this is an opportunity for you to ask more questions. But I just wanted to, introduce you to Shop Shorts and Short Circuit for those of you that have not worked with us before, that have not maybe heard of us before, or seen any of our previous work and our previous programs. So just to say a bit about Short Circuit, that it's an initiative for all of Scotland to support filmmaking talent, writers, directors and producers to make their very exciting work. We run training schemes and funding schemes, and Shop Short is our, well, as it says on the tin, I suppose, our shorts funding scheme. So in terms of what we're looking for, it's to engage with writers, directors, and producers and support the creation of your vision. There's a couple of different stages in the process, and we're just going to go through it in the guidelines. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks both. Okay, thanks, Aria. I'd just like to ask a question to those that are watching this. I wanted to check if you can see the live captions at the moment. We do have live captioners, and we've in the past we've had some technical issues with people being able to see them. So if you could please let us know, that would be great, and we can try and get them working if you can't see them. Thank you. Okay, so the first 3 questions we received from Ottilie are: how do I apply for funding? What do I need to submit for funding? And what information do you need?
Miriam, shall I pass on to you? Do you want to kick it up?
Sure. Okay. So how do I apply for funding? So our applications are now open, and it's through a application form on our website, which I will share in the chat shortly, or maybe Rachel can. What do I need to submit for funding? So at this early stage, we differ to the other BFI network hubs. really the two main areas that we're asking for is a 500-word synopsis and a 500-word personal statement. And both those things are like, they're like essentially to get to know more about your project. So like your film, and this is like the whole entirety of the film. So the beginning, the middle, and the end. Don't leave us any cliffhangers. Don't leave us like wanting to guess more. We need to know the whole story. And then also like more about you or your team. But it's worth mentioning that, you know, at this stage, you don't have to have a director attached or a producer attached. It's really like a writer's medium. And it's really about that initial idea. But within the personal statement, think about why you telling this story, why now, answering those sort of questions and really getting to the heart of what is going to make this a really, really special project on like for Scotland to make now and share on an international stage. So I think what information do you need? That's like, it's sort of like, it's not too bad, like the application form, but it's quite just straightforward things. But those two like main elements are the synopsis, which is like the full story, and your personal statement.
Thanks, Miriam. Harry, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Very, very full and complete answer.
Okay. So Debbie submitted a question and mentioned that they're a newbie, asking what's entailed in pitching. Do you have to have a team together? Do you have to have a complete script? And how long a film are you looking for?
So for pitching, so the way Shop Shorts works, as Miriam said, we're going to be going through a development phase first. So at this stage, you don't necessarily have a completed script. However, when we get to pitching in September time, date to be yet decided, we have had in the past participants and funded applicants who did not have a full team in place. You do not have to have a producer and a director attached. However, obviously having a producer as a writer is always, and a director is always encouraged. What's entailed, there will be the short circuit talent executives and external assessors, and we will be inviting the shortlisted teams to present their story and their script to us alongside a more detailed budget, if that is possible at that stage. It's not a requirement to have every single detail refined. And it will be a case of you presenting for about 5 minutes, your story, your vision, how you're planning on creating your short, and then that will be assessed by an even a more extended panel of that will consist of Short Circuit, Screen Scotland, the BFI, and external assessors. The script at that point will be complete, but bear in mind that this is not right now. It is after the 3-month development period, and the film will need to be up to 15 minutes. So page to minutes a page will be about 15 pages, I would guess. Thank you.
Thanks, Aria. Next question is from Isabella. Any top tips on what to include in the outline to stand out?
Thanks, Isabella. Great question. I think for me personally, when I'm looking at shorts in early phase, I think it's really important to have a strong visual conceit. So we are working in a visual medium, and it's quite often like, sometimes it's easy to forget it when you're trying to fit a lot of story in 500-word synopsis, to forget like the big set pieces, the way that you're going to communicate this information visually to the audience. And on audience, I think, as well as having a strong visual conceit, ways in which you can subvert the audience's expectations of what's going to happen next in the story or what a short film is. I think they're two sort of key things which I'm always encouraging our filmmakers to do. I don't know, Aria, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think for an application stage, I think one of the things that let people down is when we can't quite see the full story or the full world, or things sort of jump, because often and you know, part of the story is still in writers' heads and not necessarily on the page. So having a complete story world and character and defined character arc is important, I think.
Thank you. And Isabella also says thank you, who asked the question as they're in the room. Okay, next question is from Riyadh. Is it possible to submit 2 questions as a director if you don't have a producer attached yet? And also, just to add, we did receive quite a few questions about the possibility of submitting to one or two applications. So it'd be great if you could clarify that.
So it is possible to submit up to 2 applications as a director. As a producer, I'm going to expand my answer a little bit for the producers in the room. As a producer, you can apply with more, but you can be attached to more applications. But as a director or writer, you can apply with up to 2 projects. Bear in mind though that only one will be able to go ahead. So think carefully about what you apply and which, you know, what you want to work on, and where you spend your energy in the next less than month. And sorry, Rachel, what was the second part of the question?
So I just said that the first part was, is it possible to submit 2 applications as a director if you don't have a producer attached yet? But I just said that we'd received quite a few applications with people asking if you could submit 2 separate story ideas or more than 1 application.
It doesn't matter whether you have a producer attached at this stage. So that answer is for every sort of idea and project that you're working on. Great.
Thanks, Aria. Next question is from Kate. What's the most important element of the application?
I think depends what exactly you mean by that, Kate. I would say like nailing the synopsis, making sure it's a full story from the beginning, middle, and end. Making your enthusiasm and like your like particular take on that story really clear in your personal statement. As I mentioned, strong visual conceit and like subverting audiences' expectations. And it's not like a requirement, I don't think, of our guidelines, but I would say, like, I don't know whether I can say this. Is it okay? Like maybe like an A4 of like mood boards, like images is sometimes really helpful. That won't necessarily be like assessed early on, but I think it can really help even you as the filmmaker sort of like solidify your idea and just make the overall application like cohesive, I guess. It's like it's all part of the same story, I guess, is what I think is really important for me when assessing them.
Thanks, Miriam. And just to clarify, Tori has asked in the chat, is a producer also restricted to one selected project going forward? Just to clarify, how many applications can a producer submit? And if they are to go forward, how many can they be attached to if they receive an award?
Only one. And like, while there isn't an upper limit on producers, personally, I think there probably should be. I don't think you can do applications justice, to be honest, if you're putting in more than 2. I think it's really important not to spread yourself too thinly and be really dedicated to the projects that you are putting in.
Thanks, Miriam. And also, so yeah, just to clarify, you as a producer, you can be attached to more than 2 submissions, but if your project is selected, you can only be attached to 1. Okay, I'm going to stick to the list of questions that we've got in front of us. I can see some people putting them in the chat. If you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. That just means that we can manage it a bit easier.
Rachel, I'm keeping an eye on them as well, so we can try and address them at the end as well.
Great, thank you. And someone has also asked, they have asked in the Q&A, but this is also in relation to what we've been talking about. Are you still against the writer-director also producing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think part of what we're trying to do is also prepare writers, producers, and directors for their next steps. And you know, moving forward, being the producer of your own work, you know, there are a lot of things that you'll need to be taking on. And so we are very, very you know, more than encouraging, I guess, because we don't allow it in our guidelines, to ensure that writers find the right producer, the right pairing to work with on their idea, and producers as well to, you know, cut their teeth on working with writers at that level before progressing. So it's still a requirement that the writer and the producer are not the same person.
Great, thanks, Aria. Okay, I'm going to continue with this. So the next question is from Savnia, and they've asked, can the short be on any medium?
By medium, do we mean film medium? Like, sorry to be dense. Are we talking about film or digital? Or...
They've not clarified, unfortunately.
So if we take year 3, for example, 2 of them, well, one of them was shot on 16, one of them will be shot on 35, and the rest is shot on digital. It's ultimately if you can make it work on the budget. But we definitely encourage experimentation in medium.
Great, thanks, Miriam. Someone's just asked in the Q&A that they've asked a question through the event page, but it hasn't been addressed. Depending on what your question is, obviously we're very early on in the Q&A, so please keep an eye out, and if we do, and we should address it at some point during the session. Thanks. Okay, next question. Louise, if you submitted last year and you weren't successful, is it best to submit taking on board the feedback or submit a new project? It'd be great to get your thoughts about this.
I think it depends on the project itself and where you're at with it. We don't want to tell people not to submit the same ideas, the same project. However, you know, if the feedback has not been taken on board, then obviously chances are it might not get through again. But at the same time, if it has been addressed, if you have spent the last year working on it and you feel that this is a very important story for you to tell at this point in time, we wouldn't, you know, we wouldn't say don't do it. I think the most important thing is for you to decide whether this story is exactly what you want to tell at this point in time, and that it is ready and it addresses, you know, the you know, pitfalls that may have let you down previously, and that, you know, your story is complete and everything that we're talking about earlier.
Great, thanks, Aria. We did receive a few questions about that, so hopefully that's also answered your question. Linda has asked a question about their project, and they aim to develop the story into a feature later. Should I say this in our proposal or in a later pitch, or treat the short as a standalone for the purpose of proposal and pitch?
Thank you so much, Linda. Great question. I think previously, like maybe during SFTN days, or like over the last couple of years, doing a sort of proof of concept was a very common way. Like it was really like a lot of people's motivation to make a short film. I think increasingly funders are looking for sort of standalone projects, as you say. So I would encourage you to maybe like keep that in your back pocket for later on, and really like set out to make this short film as a standalone piece that works like as an, you know, as an art form in and of itself. I think it's really important, like looking to Europe and the way that they regard short films as like an art film in and of themselves, I think is really inspiring. And rather than like a means to an end to feature, even though for many people that's what the end goal is. But I think, yeah, as you say in your question, I think, yeah, just keep that in your back pocket for a later date.
Rachel, you're on mute, but it's...
Sorry. Just said, thanks so much, Miriam. And Linda, I hope that's answered your question. And Linda has said thanks in the chat, so hopefully that's right. Angelina has asked if it's okay to apply with execs attached.
Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely fine.
Great.
But your execs are not your producers, so just bear that in mind.
Great. I'm just moving to a quick question in the chat because I think it is relevant to what we've just been talking about. Yexa has asked, would you say a producer can also be a co-director if there's a writer attached who's also directing?
It's slightly, I know Aria was totally right in her answer to this previously. I know the BFI have slightly shifted their position on this. To be honest, it would be on a case by case basis that we would have to like put to Screen Scotland at this stage in our application, because generally speaking, we're sort of looking for those roles to be separate entities for many, many reasons, because film ultimately it's a collaborative process and it's about bringing people together and giving them like opportunities to as many people as possible, everyone doing their job to the best of their ability. But maybe if we could put a pin in that and follow up with Screen Scotland, unless Aria or Rachel, you have a clearer.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, no, I think it's entirely right. It becomes one of the things. I don't know if you worked with that team previously, but I would wonder if it's becoming a slightly convoluted setup for somebody to be a co-writer or a co-director, and then that co-director being a co-producer. It's becoming a little bit trickier, and so I would urge you to think of that setup a little bit more closely before proceeding with it. But I do think it might need a wider conversation as well. It would be good to just drop us a line.
And I think in addition to what Ira was saying, like if you are looking at doing quite an unconventional like setup like that, we'd want to see work that you had made as that setup previously, rather than it being sort of like a setup specifically for this funding. Because in any sort of co-director, co-writer, like anything where two people, you really need to show that that's a really strong bond, and therefore like the creative good of the project, not to get through
just to add, Miriam, you know, if it's a shotgun sort of marriage, a shotgun decision so that it fits the parameters of this fund, it might be something to discuss a little bit more closely, I guess. So maybe drop us a line just to know what your specifics are separately.
Great, thank you. And yeah, just drop us a line. I'll put the email in the chat just now. If there's anything as well that we don't cover during this session that you're still unsure about. Okay, next question is related to animation. It's from Eleanor. As you probably will know, we fund animation projects. And they have asked that they're looking to create a short stop motion animation film. What are you looking for in an animated film project?
I'd say it's very similar to what we're looking for in a live action short film. We do appreciate that animation takes longer. It's it's a process that can take months to do things that would take weeks in live action. So we know that. We would need to see that there's been due consideration when you're putting together a schedule, or that's at a pitch stage though, so don't worry about it too much at this point. In terms of the application now, we're not looking to see anything different other than what we would ask for a live action. So it will still need to be your outline, your clear outline, personal statement, and your previous work. You're already a director and writer duo, so you probably have worked together that you can show us previously. So it would be great to see that.
Great. Thanks, Araya. Next question is from Reese. And sorry, I should clarify that we're now answering questions related to assessment. Reese has asked, what are you specifically looking for when reading story outlines and personal statements?
I think, thanks for your question, Reese. I think we've touched on this a little bit already, but I feel like for me personally, within the synopsis, it's like a full story with a beginning, a middle, and end. The characterization is really important, and ultimately, like, the decisions that your character is making throughout is what's driving it. So characterization is really, really key. And yeah, I think it can get overlooked as well. On top of strong visual conceit, ways that you subvert the audience expectation, just like making it a really sort of like fresh look on like something that's unfamiliar is really helpful as well. And to that, in your personal statement, talking about why you are the best person to tell that story, what connection you have with this story, what are you bringing personally, and why now, and why Scotland 2023, 2024, like, and just all your sort of like enthusiasm for a project is really important, as well as like any experience you have. And ultimately, like, what has led you, all, like, imagine all your experiences leading to this one application, and like things that have happened, good and bad, like rejections and failures as well as successes, just how that is bringing you to apply to Shop Shorts now, I think is a really useful way of thinking about it.
If I can add, Miriam, everyone in here, it sounds a bit, very basic, but everybody here will have a completely different way of telling the same story. So Miriam and I are currently doing the same job. We're talent execs at Short Circuit, but our journeys have been different. Therefore, the ways we would tell a story and the reasons why we would tell it differently are because of that experience. So putting that in your personal statement and showing us why you have this unique view of the subject that you're tackling, of the story you want to tell, I think is very crucial.
Great. Thanks both. And Reese, I hope that answered your question. Next question is from Hannah. Could you please talk about the selection process once applications have been submitted?
So once the applications, at the deadline after the 29th, all applications will be going to external readers. This decision is for two reasons. One is because we do get quite a lot of applications, and it would be absolutely impossible to get back to you at a decent time if we were all reading them ourselves. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is so that we can bring more voices and more backgrounds and different viewpoints in the reading process. There'll be 2 readers per application, and then the applications sort of score higher, not an exact, it's not quite an exact science, as it's not maths, but at the same time, the applications that the readers put forward, the talent execs, us, and Screen Scotland will read and assess, and then we'll come together to discuss. There's usually quite a long discussion on the projects that have come to the sort of long list, or sort of the short long list, depending on how many we get. This might change, if it might come first to us and then to Screen Scotland and back to us and Screen Scotland. So we will have a long conversation about which projects go through. The shortlisted projects will then be notified, and should you accept the shortlist offer, I suppose, because it's not an award yet. It's the development award, if you like. Then it'll go through the development phase, and then we'll be pitching, which will have a similar assessment process, in that we'll have the external assessors and us hearing your pitches, and then discussing with the wider teams for that, to assess those pitches, and 6 projects to be awarded funding. Hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Aria. Next question is from Isabella, and now we're moving on to questions related to budget. Isabella said, it's very exciting to see the uplift in production budget for this Sharp Shorts scheme. What is the reason behind the increase, and does this affect the scope or ambition of the shorts selected?
Thanks for your question, Isabella. So we have two sort of additional funds within Scotland, as well as the production fund. So the one that you are referencing in your question there, I believe, is the 5K uplift, which was originally a COVID uplift, but has subsequently moved into well-being. And that is really like addressing additional costs that we are all incurring now due to COVID, due to the cost of living crisis, and also many sort of like additional well-being stresses. And it's just really about making sure that everyone within the crew is really well supported. So although it is a standalone pot of money, we will ask you to cost it up in certain ways, but we can help look at that like on a case-by-case basis. And the other part of access funding, which I really want to share with everyone, make sure everyone is aware, is something that Screen Scotland has, where they can support a variety of like access costs, from like everything from childcare incurred to like communication, or it was really like a very wide basis of things that it can help with. And I think it's really like all about like really with inclusion at the heart of its like development. And we really want to see that that money goes to the right places and supports filmmakers who otherwise would have like a barrier to entry, or like joining us on a scheme like Sharp Shorts.
If I also may add, it also, there's a uplift compared to previous Sharp Shorts, where the highest budget would have been £15,000, whereas we're at 25 now. This is across the board, and it's with it's in line with the BFI network as well in the other regions and nations. And the reason for that is simply understanding that everything is a lot more expensive than it used to be, and keeping the fund at the exact same level as previously, it becomes a bit of a hindrance to the projects that go ahead, trying to fit everything within a very low budget. There is no. It's quite tricky to say if there is, if it affects the scope and the ambition of the shorts. I think still 25,000 is not the same as a 50 or 90,000 pound budget. So it is higher than 15, but it is still, it's not absolutely extravagant. So the scope, we do want ambitious projects. We do want the ambitious ideas and visions and the vision from filmmakers. But don't. This is not a similar thing as what was BFI Film Fund's Future Takes. This is still Sharp Shorts.
But when you see what GMAC are doing on just over £1,000, then like you should be inspired by the new uplift in our budget to be very, very visually ambitious for sure. But thank you both.
Thank you. Eleanor's asked, can a fee from the budget be allocated for the directors and writers' time?
Yeah, sorry, it took a little while to unmute myself. Yes, absolutely. Now, what that is, it's a bit of how long is a bit of a piece of string, but we do the BFI network recommends, I should say, encourages that it's in line with other HODs, and it's in it is national living wage. Which is, national minimum wage is a bit of a convoluted conversation, but it should be in line with other HODs. Again, how much time a writer is going to put, especially during development is a little bit trickier to find, but we do encourage that everybody above the line is also compensated for their time. This is not a, we do appreciate that people want to it's something that they do because they're really passionate about it. But at the same time, we do think you should be compensated for your time.
Thanks, Aria. Next question is from Shelley. Can you show us any budget examples and help talk it through for those of us who are uncertain?
I just had a quick look on there was previously a template budget on BFI Network's website, which they've just like done a major revamp, but we could definitely share that and also like go through any questions that anyone had. I'm sorry, I don't have this to hand just now, but it's not, definitely we can talk through that probably at a later date, if that works.
Yeah, I think that there's still a budget template on the BFI Network website, and I found it the other day, so we can send that out, I suppose, to you guys. Going through it, it probably need a session in itself, because I'm sure there will be questions, but it is quite self-explanatory as well. So we'll send that out. I'll try and have a quick look now, to send it through in the chat if I manage. But if there is appetite, maybe it can be a discussion about us facilitating a budget masterclass or workshop or something in the future.
Great suggestion, thanks, Aria. Yeah, we'll try and pop that in the chat. I'll have a little look as well, and if not, we can certainly follow up with some links via Eventbrite. We can do a follow-up email, so if we do find that, we'll send it through. Next question is from Linda. Are there any barriers to me applying with an idea for a short using Gaelic with subtitles? I don't speak Gaelic myself, but it's integral to the story and I can access a translator. Also, would there be additional funding for a translator, or should this be accounted for in the main budget?
We would really love to hear from Gaelic speakers and have more of a Gaelic presence on our slate generally. So any sort of Gaelic project would certainly be encouraged. I think I will have to double check on the access. I don't know whether Aria or Rachel, you have any thoughts on that?
I don't really have much to add. I think it needs to be a wider conversation with Screen Scotland. I don't necessarily think it should be coming out of your budget, but don't hold us to account for that yet. I think it's let's put a pin on it and come back to it. I think it's yeah, exactly, Linda, you're entirely right. And as a communication cost is so, but instead of us now promising and not delivering, it'd be better to come back to it at a later stage when we've had a slightly more targeted conversation with our funders as well.
Great, thanks both. I hope that's answered your question, Linda, but perhaps we can chat about it in more detail if you drop us a line. Next question, we're moving on to commissioning now. Next question is from David. I'm curious to know if there's a specific genre goal in the Sharp Shorts commissioning. I haven't seen loads of comedy commissioned in recent years, and I'm just wondering if that's by design.
No, we're open to all genres. So it would be great to hear from comedy writers. And it's just the way things come in waves, things come in cycles. It's amazing. Like after sort of announcing one first features round that we didn't have any horrors, then we had like a whole influx. So it's really just like writers are responding to trends, I guess, that they see, or like what's happening in the wider world. But we're very open to all genres, elevated genres, comedy. We would love to hear from you all, just as ambitious and like some really original, sophisticated ways of handling genre.
Great, thanks, Miriam. Next question is from George. What particular areas, i.e. diversity of genre, narrative style, are Screen Scotland looking to highlight in their project selections?
There isn't one. I think we always get that question, Miriam, and what exactly is it that you're looking for in terms of genre, in terms of, you know, what sort of visuals, what sort of as you say, narrative style. There isn't a specific answer to that. I think every project is judged on its own merit, and every application is considered based on, you know, what Miriam was very well saying earlier about what makes a full application, and you know, for lack of a better word, of like a good outline, again, on the page, what's on the page. It isn't to do with the genre, it isn't to do with whether it's a comedy or a drama. It's whether what you're trying to convey comes through on the page. There isn't a priority area of genre or narrative style at all.
Thanks. Next question is from Matthew. How many production companies must greenlight a film before it's greenlit? And now I'm unsure this and really how this relates to Sharp Shorts. If you're asking if we must greenlight them, I'm assuming.
I wonder if it's sort of how many companies / funders / organizations, maybe.
Well, we could certainly answer it with the process that we go through.
Well, it comes through to Short Circuit, then we discuss with Screen Scotland and the BFI. So I guess 3. And also external assessors, you know, it goes through and we hear their thoughts and feedback, both the readers and the assessors for the pitch. But I guess it's 3 organizations. If
They're not production companies, though.
No.
There's private funding.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying.
Sorry, not private funding, public funding.
Public funding.
Public funding, yeah. It's not, it doesn't go through any production companies. Matthew, if you are here, feel free to clarify your question in the chat if you want a clearer answer, but hopefully that has helped. So just moving briefly onto distribution, as we only had one question about that. Ross has asked, is there support post-film release with regards to festival submissions?
Yes, there is. Like, we are all about the development of the film, the making of the film in production, and then like distribution is after post is like such a huge part of what we're doing at Short Circuit. It's really about sharing your finished film with an audience at home here in Scotland and internationally as well. So on top of a £250 like bursary we will give you to apply to festivals, because festivals are like, it's quite expensive to apply to a lot. We also have a consultancy with Matt and Sana from Glasgow Short Film Festival, and they will like give you each project bespoke support, talk about your festival strategy and how best to share your film with the world, which is really important.
Thanks, Miriam. Next question. Now we're moving on to eligibility. We received quite a lot of questions about this. Quite a lot of them were specific to the individual asking, so hopefully we can try and cover all of the questions. So Ross asked, can you submit if you have funding pending elsewhere?
Yes. Very short answer, yes.
Great. Zara has asked, given some context, they're a self-shooting director, producer and editor in the documentary world. Within projects I've worked on, I have directed other camera operators and presenters and talent, but I'm officially credited as a producer / editor in the credits. I would love to apply as a director to the scheme, as I feel that's where my skills and goals lie. I wondered if these credits would allow me to do that.
Thank you, Zara. Yes, absolutely. Please do apply as a director. I think although we do ask for some relevant experience in the role that you're applying, you clearly have transferable skills. And this is really about, like, we're not wanting to shut anyone out. We want to be as inclusive as possible. So please do apply to where you feel like you are best suited. And again, it's like returning back to that personal statement. It's being really clear about why you and why now, and why this is like the right step for you at this point in your career.
Great, thanks, Miriam. Hope that's answered your question, Zara, but do let us know in the chat if you're here. Laura has asked, does the director/producer team both have to be currently based in Scotland?
Also short answer, I'm afraid, yes.
Yeah.
Great. Maeve has asked, how much experience should your team have?
Maybe again, like further to my reply to Zara, it really is like an inclusive program, and like we don't want to shut the door on anyone. We really want to understand more through your personal statement why this is the right time in your career for you to move into this role if you don't have direct credit or experience in that way. So it's like it's much more open, and then maybe people feel on first reading the guidelines. But if you have any questions on this, like, please feel free to drop us a line. And we also do like one-to-ones as well, in which we can like chat through any of these sort of personal project concerns. But I'm sure Rachel will share that at the end as well.
Okay, thanks, Miriam. And yeah, just to add to that, we've got there's a list of criteria and application guidelines. So do just look at the application guidelines, because it does outline like what kind of experience we're looking for, as we did receive quite a few questions about that. Okay, Aidan has asked, can I apply despite living out with the Central Belt?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
Great, and we encourage that. Please apply if you're outside of the Central Belt. Lara has asked, what qualifies someone to be an emerging writer?
I again, like these are very like personal project type things, questions, but I think it's important if you can give like background to your experience so far, if you can share that in the personal statement. And also I think there might, for writers specifically, writing samples or that sort of stuff of previous work that you've written.
Thanks, Miriam. Daniel's asked, can one person be in more than one project, in both as a writer, director? I know that we've kind of touched on this previously about how many applications someone can submit.
So it depends on the role. I assume you're asking about being a writer, director, or producer, presumably. So then it depends. You can be at, if you're a writer, director, you can have up to 2 applications. If you're a producer, you can have more. And that's because we completely appreciate the low number of producers resident in Scotland. But at the same time, be very aware of the time and commitment that it will the application will require, and not the application itself, but you putting forward your best project. So the short answer is yes, you could have up to 2 if you're a writer, director, more if you're a producer. But at the same time, do take care to make sure that your applications are full and, really showcase your full potential.
Great. Thanks, Haria. Yeka has asked, what qualifies as a credit for a writer? Can it be a short story they've created separate to an organisation, or does it have to be linked to a film?
Again, like there are like pretty clear guidance within the guidelines of what writers like what their credits can be. Yeah, so please like refer to that, and project to project, person to person, you can write to us directly and we can give you further guidance.
Great. Thanks, Miriam. Su Young has asked, the director and I, producer, have only had experiences in documentary filmmaking, but we are developing a short animation project. Is it okay to have no experience in the format or genre of the project that we're applying with?
Technically, yes. I think if you feel at the right time in your career to address this project and make sure that you surround yourselves with people that can support you in your application, yes, we do encourage people to try and move across to different mediums, I suppose. But the short answer is yes, you could. There's nothing stopping you, so long as you put forward a good case for your shift and can demonstrate that you really thought about the project that you're putting forward and how you're going to address, how you're going to make it work, how you're going to put it together. But yes, absolutely, you can still apply.
Great, thanks, Aria. Next question is from Craig. I'm a Scottish born and raised filmmaker with a topical short film script that's set in Scotland with Scottish characters. I really want it to be shot in Scotland with a Scottish-based crew. However, I've been living for the past 3 years outside London while studying at NFTS. So I wanted to check if I can still apply for this scheme.
So are you, sorry, I'm not entirely sure if you're still studying and living out of Scotland. This is meant to be the short circuit Sharp Shorts is meant to support creatives that are based in Scotland. We're really trying to get people back, like creating their best work. But at the same time, so I'm not entirely sure if you're still there, or you wouldn't be able to apply as an NFTS student currently if you're still currently studying a full-time course on the NFTS. So, well, or rather, if you'll be on the course when the projects are commissioned. So I'm not entirely sure for your specific case, just because I can't quite tell whether you're still in London or you're still a student or you've moved back up to Scotland. If you have moved back, if you have moved back to Scotland, then, and you're not a full-time student, then yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Aria. Okay, next question is from Robbie. Based on recent experience creating a short film that had a clear narrative arc but was primarily physically performed, please can I ask your thoughts of eligibility regarding a proposal or script in which text or dialogue might be very scarce, a story involving people alone?
Personally, for me, I would be really interested to hear more about your project, Robbie. I think very often, like projects, again, it's sort of like returning to that idea of visual conceit and what you're communicating with your audience through visual language. So certainly we would really love to hear from you. I guess like there is like sort of at Short Circuit, we technically only fund narrative. So that is distinct from documentary or like more experimental art films. However, if you can like make like a very clear argument for why it is narrative, and there's no doubt from your question that to me that would be classed as narrative, then yeah, it shouldn't be a problem at all. I think yeah, nothing more to add. Yeah, it sounds interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Miriam. Blair has asked, they've said that I have a real interest in writing and directing my own stuff, but I'm not sure I meet the entry requirements in terms of having a portfolio or experience in the industry. I've written a short film script and have a couple of other scripts on the go, and I do have experience of creating mostly promotional style videos in my current job rather than story driven. What options do I have?
Hi, Blair. I think, I mean, first off, well done on completing writing script. It's not an easy thing to do. So well done on that. But I wonder if it might make more sense for you to look at I'm not entirely sure when it will launch, but sort of what are sort of sibling organizations doing a GMAC who are funding shorts at a lower budget level. And they are shorter as well, so you can start practicing more and cut your teeth into how these projects, how you can make a funded short before submitting something to Sharp Shorts. We wouldn't be, the application wouldn't also be on your script, it would be on an outline. So I wonder if looking out with Sharp Shorts for now might be the best option, so you can get that experience to get to a Sharp Shorts experience level, really. I'm not entirely sure when GMAC might be launching again, but keep an eye out because it might be quite the right thing for you. The other thing is I'm not entirely sure of the age bracket that you'd fall in, but keep an eye out for the Young Scottish Filmmaker Prize. If this is something that you would be keen on submitting your work, it would mean that you'd need to make the film through other means, but it might be something to start getting you on this sort of climbing wall rather than ladder of making shorts and being supported through a public funder like Short Circuit.
Thanks, Iria. And yeah, just to add also, we have received a few questions in the chat about this, but if you are an emerging filmmaker looking to apply and you are eligible and you do have the experience, we're hosting an in-person talent mixer tomorrow with GMAC Film from 6:30, and we're also doing an online talent mixer next Wednesday. So I'll put details of that in the chat if you haven't registered already, but that's just, we've had a few questions coming in just about meeting producers and how to build your team. So that will give you an opportunity to do that in person in Glasgow tomorrow and then online next week. Okay, next question is from David. I am a proud Scot, born and lived in and around Glasgow for the first 25 years of my life. Moved to England as I couldn't seem to pick up enough film and TV work to sustain my career. Very keen to return home. I rent a room with my cousin in Glasgow part-time, but the only proof of address I could provide is if I ask for receipts for rent. I've written a film very firmly set in a rarely seen community in Scotland, but it would be filmed in Scotland with Scottish cast and crew and is about Scotland. I'm a Scot desperate to build a career back home and return. Given the Welsh Fund will fund Welsh-born filmmakers not resident in Wales, is there any hope that you would consider my project? And they are the writer and director of that project.
Thank you, David. We understand your difficulties. I think if you can look at the eligibility on the guidelines, it is really important that this fund is for filmmakers based in Scotland at this time. And so I'm not sure there's a couple of contradictory things in your question. So maybe we should discuss it. If you want to drop us an email, we can chat more about that. It is worth saying our colleagues over at Film Cymru, they do have different guidelines. So we are currently only accepting applications for filmmakers based in Scotland, but David, please drop us a line and we can discuss further.
Great, thanks, Miriam. So now we're moving briefly on to funding. Linda has asked, I note there's no announcement for First Features funding as yet. And we have also received, just to say, we have also received a few questions in the chat and the Q&A about this. So yeah, I note there's no announcement for the First Features funding as yet. Is this in the pipeline for 2023, or have funds been appropriated into the increased budgets for shorts?
Budget has not been subsumed by the Sharp Short budget. They're completely separate, and there will be First Features rounds again this year too. We have not announced the deadlines yet, but it is coming very well. Not the deadline, the announcement is coming very soon. So just keep an eye out on our website and our socials. First Features rounds will be coming as in previous years as well.
Great. Thanks, Aria. Okay, now we're moving on to projects. Nadav has asked, is the story being set in Scotland or being shot in Scotland a criteria or an aid to selection?
We would ideally, it is a requirement that all films are shot in Scotland. This is a Scottish-backed scheme, and we want to see that money spent within Scotland supporting the next generation of Scottish talent. That said, it doesn't have to be set in Scotland. So what world you want to build in your short is entirely up to you as the filmmaker.
Great, thanks, Miriam. And again, well, Naz has asked, does the ideas have to be specifically Scottish? And I guess you've just answered that. As long as it's, you know, filmed here, you can build whatever world you want, really.
Build whatever world in this world or other worlds. Be as like adventurous as possible. Really look like internationally, like what you can bring to Scotland and tell here, but don't let that in any way like stifle your creative vision of the stories that you can tell.
Great, thanks, Miriam. Richard has asked, regarding cultural sensitivity and appropriation, do you have tips for how an individual writer can write a diverse cast of characters with multiple ethnicities and life experiences?
I think the main thing is to present an authentic experience from your point of view, and at the same, but if you're looking to incorporate a lot of different viewpoints, work with a co-writer or two or consultants, you know, make sure that what you're trying to present on screen is authentic and clearly researched, and you've taken into account the lives and experiences and cultural backgrounds of the people and groups that you're trying to represent.
Great, thanks, Aria. Erica has asked, what do you find is a recipe for a compelling short?
I keep repeating the same thing, but I'm glad because like I think it is really important to have a strong visual conceit, like a story that subverts audiences' expectations, just like a complete story, like good characterization, shining a light on a world that we don't often get to see, I think is really super important, because our readers are reading like a lot of these. So those sort of things will really help your projects to stand out. And also like more about you and why it's really important that you tell this story now.
Great, thanks, Miriam. Graham has asked, would you recommend getting in contact before the deadline if your idea contains transgressive themes?
I think it depends on what you mean by transgressive themes. We wouldn't want to have anything that is that will jeopardize your career. Anything that is I'm not sure how to put this, but if depending on what you mean transgressive themes, do get in touch. We wouldn't want to diminish anyone's experience. We wouldn't want to have anything with sort of abusive, racist background or anything like that. But at the same time, we do want to hear stories that address society's issues, I suppose. Do get in touch. I'm not entirely sure what you mean, and I don't think I will be entirely sure until we have a slightly more specific conversation about what you're trying to write. It is very important to us that we are considerate to, you know, our to audiences, and so keep that in mind, and drop us a line. Yeah.
I think like further to that, Aria's totally right, and that I think it's bear in mind like all our films made at Screen Scotland and the BFI, they need to be able to be classed like by the BBFC, which as like an 18 or under. So like if you go on their website, but I think like transgressive is good, like and sort of being bolder in your storytelling and what you can achieve. And we're very like one of our year 3 projects was about a sex worker working in Edinburgh, and in that there is a lot of nudity, and it's really like when we were commissioning that, it's really about how we best protect the filmmaker, the crew, the cast, like, and these are really important skills that you will learn by doing something like a little bit more transgressive, as you say. But the 18 certificate is key.
Yeah, it's how you handle your story and you tell your story more than just you know a very short sentence theme of your story, or whether it can be considered transgressive or not. It might be best to drop us a line so we know, you know, we can advise a bit, you know, a bit better.
Great, thanks both. Lauren has asked, so they're a writer, director, and actor. Can I act in my own project too?
Yes, you can. In our first year, our second year, like we are here to support like writer, directors, and performers. I think it is definitely, with all the projects that we have supported so far, there's definitely the conversation about whether they are the right person to do all the roles. And to be honest, like not everyone is, and it's all about like what's in the best interest of the film. But yeah, we're really happy to receive applications from people operating in that sort of space.
If I could add to that as well, that keep in mind that you will need quite a good support system around you, not in terms only of well-being, but also, you know, if you're behind the camera and in front of the camera at the same time, just to make sure that this is you know, really important to you and the story that you're trying to tell.
Great, thanks. Okay, next question, and is from Sean. I believe this is to the talent executives, so forgive me if that's not who you were aiming this at, but Sean asks, had you ever received funding for a short film before working with Short Circuit? Was your film concept tailored or created with the short budget in mind, or was it a concept you'd thought of before applying? What would you say is the cheapest and most effective way to increase the production value or look of a short film?
Well, I mean, both Aurora and I, we worked as producers before joining Short Circuit, so we know how hard it is, producers. That's why we are very sympathetic of your plight. I think the commissions, I received a couple of like public funding, but never from the BFI network. I think in terms of like, for me, what increases production value and the look of a short film, I think prep is really important. Prep for directors is super, super important, and something like in year 4, we are like really looking to emphasize. And I think it's really important that directors, they are like well in time of the shoot, they're learning to work with actors, ideally their own actors that they'll be working with, but understanding more about what working with actors entails, how you like block and like set all that sort of a set up the shoot, how the director communicates with the crew, and just like, and all this sort of stuff can be done in prep, and like just how everyone is communicating with each other. It will save like so much time and money, and will just add a lot of value on screen.
Yeah, similar to Miriam, I haven't received funding from the BFI in the past, but I have received some sort of public funding for other shorts. The film, the concepts of the films the films that I've worked on we did not start them from scratch to fit a specific budget or fund. It was projects that I was passionate about and that the writers and directors were also passionate about, which I think is very key. And it comes through. I'm quite glad now that crossing the fence to hear, to see that it actually is quite obvious when people have just come together the last minute and put an idea together to fit a certain fund. So I'd say, don't, from my experience was, it's very important to be working on something that you're passionate about and not trying to fit specifically in a particular fund, because budgets are how long is a piece of string. You can sort of work around things. In terms of what is the cheapest and most effective, I'm not sure it was the cheapest, but if you're having exterior scenes and you have no extras, that kind of shows that the value is quite, production value is quite low. If you have interior scenes and you have a lush house, but all you have is like semi-dead plants, that's not very good. Very simple things, and having a good production designer with you or somebody who's passionate. Good doesn't mean super experienced and super expensive. It means somebody who is at a similar level and understands the importance of making this film the way you want to make it and puts the effort and their creative mind to it. But yeah, these are some very, very simple, sounding simple suggestions, simplistic maybe, but just to be true to what you're trying to say, what would that world look like without thinking of the budget, and then try and figure out creative ways to fit within the budget.
Great, thank you. Javad has asked, now we're moving on to teams, actually, sorry, I forgot to say. Javad has asked, how do I find a producer?
Hello. So Javad, thank you for your question. Producers, we want to meet you. We want to introduce you to people. We do run a Short Circuit, a producer accelerator program. So there are now lots of graduates of that who are certainly looking for projects, and their names, I think, are on our website. As Rachel mentioned, we are also doing a couple of mixers. We're doing one tomorrow in person in Glasgow. We're also doing one online the following week, just to get sort of speed dating type thing of people introducing each other to one another and getting to know projects specifically with shorts in mind. So also just watch loads of short films, watch short films that you really, really watch a massive array of them, and any ones that you're sort of into in any way, you should make connection with producers that way as well. That's a brilliant way to meet not only producers, but anyone, any other members of crew. Film is a collaborative medium. It's about everyone doing their job to the very best of their ability. So if you dig the production design or the costume or what a producer DOP is doing, you should reach out to them, even if it's not for this project. then probably will be an opportunity you can work together in the future. So it's about like, don't wait for anyone to make the introductions, like just take it into your own hands, and like don't be afraid to reach out to people as well.
Great, thanks, Miriam. Next question's from Matthew. Are you more likely to be selected with a full team of writer, director and producer rather than solely applying as a writer, director?
Short answer is no. We don't necessarily, if you think about it, the very first hurdle for you guys to go through is readers and us then reading your applications. So it is not, and the readers will not be receiving the full application, will be receiving your outlines and personal statements. Therefore, if it's not a full team, that will not be known by the readers. It is based on your outline, it is based on your idea, it is based on how you put your vision forward. We have had, even in the past, we've even had projects that were commissioned at pitching stage and producers were not quite firmly attached yet. So I'd say don't worry too much about that, especially if don't try and find, if I could give one bit of advice, is don't try and find a producer to attach just for the sake of the application.
Thanks, Aria. Great advice. June has asked, can I find the crew when I get offer from the first round? And I believe they mean finding the crew once they've been offered funding. I think that's what they mean by this question.
Yes, absolutely. We wouldn't expect anyone to have all their crew or even like their heads of department in place until they'd been awarded the production funding. So that will be realistically still being pieced together like just before you shoot. Like, so there's no pressure at all on that for early stage development or even the award.
Great. Thanks, Miriam. And we are on to the last of our pre-submitted questions. It's from Sarah. Are we able to apply as a team of co-writers and co-directors and producer? Thank you.
Short answer, yes. Yes, you can. Have you worked with the other co-writer or the other co-director before? Why are you finding this to be the best setup? But yes, you can have two directors, two writers, and a producer, so long as they are not, the roles are not sort of doubling up.
Great, thanks, Aria. So we've had a few questions. I'm just going to work quickly through the Q&As that we've received in the chat. Hopefully, Aria or Miriam, myself, we can work through them. We can type answers to ones that are quite easy to answer. I'm just popping in the chat now details about our upcoming mixers. I
am just responding on a question about the budget, Rachel. It's by an anonymous attendee in terms of the amount. So instead of typing, I might as well just answer it now. In terms of the amount we may receive, is this down to what we say we need, or what you believe it's worth? It is the amount that you ask for needs to be sort of related to the film you're trying to make. We wouldn't want to say, if your film could be made for £10,000, still get the 25, but equally, it will need to be what it needs to be. Getting down to approving of budgets, it will be a case of Short Circuit approving it and Screen Scotland approving it, and it won't be at the first. It won't be at that stage, at this stage now for application, long list, short list yet. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, because as we will be going through the process of development, your needs and requirements budget-wise might change anyway. So it will be down to a conversation and a round of approvals. And if things don't, what you think doesn't quite us and our partners and funders don't quite see it and see, it will be a conversation. We're not in the business of just saying no for the sake of no. So it will be a conversation, and one that will be had further down the line. So don't worry too much about it now.
Thanks, Aria. I'm just putting in the chat. So I've just put in the chat the link to register for tomorrow's in-person talent mixer. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, I believe it is sold out. We've had a few people drop out today. So there might be a few more tickets becoming available. So I'm just putting the online one here. So if you can't make it tomorrow in person, then you can join us next week online on Zoom. We ask that if you have a project that you're hoping to submit and you're looking for people, then if you just, when you're registering, just put your synopsis in there and we'll be able to put you in a breakout room with people. So we have got 5 minutes left. We can maybe very briefly try to get through the last couple of questions. If Aria, Miriam, if you want to read them out maybe and answer the ones you want to, and I will reply by typing to the ones that I can answer.
Sounds good, Rachel. I'm starting from the top, I suppose. Is there any red flags or things to avoid, or not waste words on with the story outline? Is there any unique qualities successful applicants wrote in their statement or outline that made them stand out? I'll come back to Miriam's answer earlier that it is, it's to have your visual conceit very clearly laid out, is to have your story world and your character arc laid out. 500 words is not a lot, but it's certainly enough to put forward an idea for a short story and a short film. So focusing on your, on Act 1, 2, 3, focusing on what that world is in your outline, that is the important thing. And then on your personal statement, again, focusing on why you want to tell the story, why you are the right person, and what is your unique view. There are not specific unique qualities that I could say every successful application has these things, but I can identify areas that let people down, and that is, often I talk with writers who have a very clear idea in their head, but it's not on the page. And so if you read the story back later, if you write it today and then you read it back in a week, and you need to fill in gaps with things that you know about your story, that probably suggests that you need to change something in it, because we won't be able to see it, and neither will the writers. So I think that's a common pitfall, but I wouldn't be able to say these are specific. Unfortunately, it's not an exact science. I wish it was. I really do, because that means that I would be getting funding as an independent producer separate from this job. Previously, I would be getting funding after funding, but it is to make sure that everything that you want to convey is on the page. And I've taken way too long of our 5 minutes with these answers, so I'm going to stop.
I'll jump in just to answer Sharon. Sharon is asking, will there be an opportunity to be introduced to producers if you don't already have one attached? So yes, Sharon, there will. Please apply. And quite a number of the projects who have gone through to commissioning has had a producer attached at a later stage. But so don't let that hold you back. Anonymous, yes, it is technically possible to be funded through Sharp Shorts and First Features at the same time. One doesn't necessarily preclude the other.
Holly, Jack, if the application is coming from the writer of the project, should they include a paragraph in the personal statement from the director outlining their vision for the film? Absolutely, go for it. Whatever feels more relevant and useful to convey your vision, do it.
Great, thank you. Linda's asked, will we generate a list of producers for projects as yet unattached? Last year, I believe it was last year, we did a call out for producers, or the year before. And we do actually have a network of producers, and I believe that we're wanting to do the same this year. Obviously, as we mentioned before, we'll have our in-person and online talent mixers. Perhaps we can ask if those producers are happy with us sharing their details with other people that have registered for the event. So yeah, short answer, yes, we can.
Kind of.
Yeah, we can, but we'll have to double check, obviously GDPR guidelines. We need to check with people if they're happy for us to share their details.
So just jump in, Chris, you're asking where to watch shorts. There are so many shorts online, like Short of the Week is great. Just try and get into the habit of like watching one on your lunch break or something, and just get through as many, because to everyone, we should all be watching short films, and they are a beautiful like art form in and of themselves. There are so many, like GSFF did an amazing festival. There are festivals throughout Scotland all year round, online and in person. We should be, if we are wanting to make short films, we should all be repping them harder. We should all be watching them. And yeah, I would encourage you to support filmmakers of short films.
Okay, last two questions. I believe Sharon's one was answered.
Yes, I think so.
So I'm just going to mark that off. So that's going to be the last one we'll be able to answer today, just trying to keep it to time. Someone said that they can't make it to any of the mixers. Will they still be able to find producers and directors somehow? Yes. So what we can chat about this as a team, but I think what we're planning on doing is hopefully sharing the information about those that have attended the mixers, and if they're happy for us sharing their contact details, they're a little bit of information about them, a little bit of a blurb, who they're looking to work with, like what projects they're interested in working on, and a link to their previous work. And I would quite like to share that with everyone that's attended the Q&A today, if you're happy with that. But again, like I said, we need to check if people are happy with us sharing their details. But I think that would be a really good way of connecting people together. Unfortunately, we don't have any further mixers planned before the deadline. But it's, I think the best way to do it is reaching out to people. So hopefully we'll be able to share some information and details so you can do that yourself. Okay, we've done it. We've went through all the questions. And
we're just over time, but I do want to ask if anybody else has any last minute burning questions, to just type them quickly now.
Are we opening up? We're opening up.
Yeah, drop us an email.
Drop us an email.
Keep in touch.
Well, thank yous are coming in, so I think we've covered
really
much everything.
We're really excited to receive your applications. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks,
and
everyone.
best of luck, everybody.
Yeah, good luck. I'm just popping our email again in the chat, just as a reminder. And that's our website.
Oh, I'll put in the application. Oh, yes. How many projects get longlisted? It depends on how many projects apply, really. It's the sort of short list of each reader. So it depends on how many applications we receive, and we'll get a sort of top percentage of the top of their allocation, but we won't know until we know, unfortunately. And we'll be developing up to 12 and funding up to 6 this year. Great, thanks everyone, and yeah, looking forward to seeing your applications, and don't be a stranger, drop us a line. Bye. Bye everybody.